And let me introduce my panelists to you. And in studio with me, we have Naomi Ngatia. She is a member of County Assembly Nyandarua. We also have Wanjiku Muturi, who is a member of County Assembly Kiambu, representing special interest groups, youth, and Naomi special interest groups. All right, and we are expecting in studio shortly Sinte Nchoi, who is a member of the County Assembly Narok. Together with them, as I mentioned, we'll be taking a look at the state of democracy given the onslaught on the media, as well as the vote on the finance bill. And Raila Odinga posted this yesterday on his Twitter account. Let's take a look at this. Let me see if I can zoom in any further, but it says Tuesday exclamation point, and we'll take a look at this video soon enough after we take a look at the dailies. We begin with the Daily Nation, and the front page story, the headline is this: expensive loans add to tax pain as Ruto signs finance bill. It'll be rough. Kenyans should now brace themselves for new higher loan interest rates in the next 60 days after the Central Bank of Kenya raised the benchmark rate by 1 percentage point. This came as President William Ruto assented to the finance bill that is expected to pile more pressure on businesses and the salaried, as well as push up the cost of living, and the courts declined to issue orders against the new law. This story on the finance bill also informs the front page story on the Taifa Leo. But before we get into that, we take a look at what else is sharing the front page. And the question being posed here is, which way Raila? It says decision time there on the front page of the Daily Nation. And more detail is this: Azimio leader Raila Odinga is fast running out of options in his quest to tame President William Ruto and his Kenya Kwanza administration. All his previous attempts, from refusing to recognize his presidency to calling for cessation, have come a cropper. Fresh from major upsets in the National Assembly and Senate on the finance bill and the Siaya Deputy Governor impeachment motion, what does Mr. Odinga have up his sleeve this time round? They've enumerated said failed attempts, including the presidential election petition loss, refusal to recognize Ruto presidency, product boycotts, march to State House, expulsion of rebels to force by-election, cessation calls, ICC petition, release of IEBC whistleblower results, and the losses in Senate and National Assembly most recent. Also on the front page, good news for border borders in free insurance and training plan. I had mentioned the impeachment motion that went a crop against the Deputy Governor Siaya County, and the front page reads that senators vote to save Siaya's old wall. Kenya Kwanza lawmakers gang up to deal Azimio rivals a blow as they use their numbers to vote against impeachment of Deputy Governor. This tyranny of numbers, is it a threat to democracy, is one of the things we'll be looking at this morning. Automated registry of sex offenders out, and name coast drug lords, urges Nasir. I also see on the front page of the Daily Nation, Kenyan trader probed for shipping arms to Shabab. All right, front page of the Business Daily, Thuge strikes, sets tone with highest loan rate in 7 years. Surprise meeting increases CBR to 10.5% from 9.5%. Rise meant to contain effect of new taxes from July the 1st. Let's take a look at a little bit more detail on this as penned by Kefa Mwiruri. After just 1 week in office, the new Central Bank of Kenya Governor Kamau Thuge called a surprise policy-making meeting yesterday that increased the benchmark lending rate to the highest point in nearly 7 years on heightened fear of a spike in consumer prices. The move, which sets the tone of the new CBK leadership, has ushered in a new era of expensive bank loans and will further erode the spending power of Kenyan consumers. Higher interest rates mean consumers will spend more to service their loans. Besides bank borrowers, the high rates will also hit ordinary consumers in the form of more expensive goods on shelves. Also on the front page of the Business Daily, what taxpayers will spend on Uhuru Raila Kalonzo parks, and this particular report is penned by Patrick Alushula. Taxpayers will spend 645.09 million shillings to fund the parks for former President Uhuru Kenyatta, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, and former vice presidents in the financial year starting July. pointing to the high cost of sustaining top civil servants in retirement. Mr. Kenyatta will get 440 million shillings in parks, which shows that a big chunk of the money will go to him. On the ticker, Kenya increases domestic borrowing target by 50 billion shillings. The Treasury has raised the domestic borrowing target for the current financial year by 50 billion shillings, backpedaling on a previous cut effected in the first mini budget released by the Kenya Kwanza administration. And let's now take a look at the Taifa Leo. As I mentioned, they take a look at the finance bill, and they say he imeenda. And they've listed the maumivu ya ushuru, including the 1.5% housing levy, the increase on fuel VAT by 8% to 16%, the tax on imported sugar, the tax on digital content creators, the increased pay as you earn for those earning above 500,000 shillings to 32.5%, up from 30%, and above those earning above 800,000 shillings up to 35%. Up to 35%. The increase in tax on imported fish. I also see on the front page here other details on the pain of the taxes contained in the finance bill. So that is the front page of the Taifa Leo. At the very top here, macho yote sasa kwa Raila, kinara wa Azimio, atua nchi leo na kuelekea kikoni anakotarajiwa kutangaza upya mapambano. All right, let's take a look at the Standard now before I invite my panelists to weigh in. And front page of the Standard, the headline reads, Ruto Raila battles rescue Oduol from axe. A flurry of calls from Kenya Kwanza Alliance leaders convinced the senators to vote according to their plan, vanquishing any prospect of Azimio having its way in pushing out Orengo's deputy. Showdown looms after Ruto's tax nod, with the finance bill assented to, and prices expected to rise from July the 1st. Azimio leaders say it is time the Mwananchi protested the high cost of living, and as the Taifa Leo has done, they've listed some of the contentious provisions contained therein. I also see on the front page here, cost of loans to go up after CBK reviews margin. The central bank yesterday raised its policy lending rate to 10.5%, the highest in 7 years, a move that will push lenders to adjust their borrowing rates. And at the very top here, Malala plan to audit cabinet splits UDA. All right, let's take a look at the Star. And the front page, the headline reads, Ruto's health plan to cost 550 billion shillings, government to hold 3-day forum to decide how to get the money. Also see on the front page here, speaking of health, an image of the acting KEMSA CEO, Andrew Mulwa. New KEMSA boss is dragged into the 3.7 billion shilling mess. Acting KEMSA boss Andrew Mulwa has been dragged into the bungled mosquito tender mess that cost the country a record 3.7 billion shillings. A senior officer working under Mulwa, who was then Director of Preventive and Promotive Health, told senators that Mulwa was aware of the inconsistencies around the tender but failed to act. Helen Ora filed that report for us. You can find it on NTV Kenya's YouTube channel. And alcohol crackdown. Nasir orders closure of bars near schools. Speaking of our topic of conversation, they've highlighted an opinion piece here by Michael Waikenda. Azimio should focus on nation building. I just wanted to look at the editorial cartoon on contained in the Star, and it's with regard to the mess in the health sector. Here we have the CS Nakumicha, who had said pray for her, and behind there I see, is that a wolf with a coat, donning a coat with the KEMSA branding, and a vulture on the other side with NHIF on the sleeve. All right, let's take a look now at People Daily. And their headline reads, let me just scroll up here so we can take a look at that. New taxes kick in from next week. Mixed bag for taxpayers. President has signed finance bill into law, meaning that from Saturday, some of the taxes become payable, while others have been staggered to September and January. higher deductions that start on Saturday. 16% VAT on petrol, 1.5% housing levy, 3% turnover tax for small businesses, 32.5% income tax for workers earning over 500,000 shillings. Income tax for workers earning above 800,000 shillings, effective immediately, 35%, 12.5% excise tax on earnings from betting and gaming takes effect starting Saturday, and 10% excise tax on fish imports. Lower levies that start this weekend are also listed on the front page, also on the front page of the People Daily. Ruto allies save Deputy Governor. I see move to end infighting, rocking UDA. That was also highlighted on the front page of the Standard. And teachers protest over cash. Money for schools has been coming late, and government has not honored all its obligations over the last 2 years, claim the heads. I think I've looked at pretty much all the front pages. Most of them make reference to the assent of the finance bill and what that then means for our pockets starting this Saturday. I'm curious what my panelists have to say on the subject and what their constituents have to say on the same. I'll start with you, Naomi. Your thoughts now that the finance bill comes into effect Saturday. What mambo kwa ground ikwaje? How has this news been received?
Thank you so much, Olive, for having me on the show. My name is Naomi, for those who may not have met me before, and I represent the youth of Nyandarua County, Urban MCA, and the youth of Nyandarua County are excited. We look forward to houses, we look forward to being able to grow our county. This is because in the finance bill, we have a reduction in certain taxes that will favor even young people. We have an increase in HELB allocation. We have from 15 billion, 100% increase from 15 billion to 30 billion. The young people and the students of Nyandarua County will greatly benefit from this increase. We also have reduction in certain taxes and taxes exempt on raw materials, creation of raw materials for fertilizers. This will help in the growth of agriculture sector in Nyandarua County, where our staple food is potatoes. We do a lot of farming. So this will really greatly help the young people to venture into agriculture and be able to create value in the county.
All right, so you're saying they're excited. Strong terminology there. Is that the same thing in Kiambu County?
Thank you very much, Oli, for having me this morning. My name is Wanjiku Muturi. I represent the youth and the people of Kiambu County, and I am glad to be here this morning. The reception by the people on the new finance bill that has just been passed and signed into law by the president earlier yesterday. It has been an informative process for the people of Kiambu because you realize there is a lot of clauses that actually support the local mwananchi of Kiambu County. We would see, for instance, we have a very big percentage of us that are dairy farmers, and we have seen actually there is zero rating of products and manufacturing of products of animal feed that actually support the daily farmers, and also actually the zero rating of the manufacturing of the pharmaceuticals products that they help the local mwananchi to tackle the issues that come with the farming of the dairy products. And there are a lot of also other things that actually excite the youth of Kiambu, because we have a reduction of taxes on the cost of the internet from 20% to 50%. So we are, as we encourage our people to plug into the ICT hubs that are situated in most of our constituencies, we're able to know that and see a progressive economy, whereas the youth of Kiambu will be able to plug into jobs online within the country and outside the country. So it is a progressive process where the people are going to learn actually as much as there are the broadly highlighted insinuation by the state on the majorly on the disadvantages of the tax on the finance bill. We also actually have a great and a lot of things that actually need to be highlighted, and the Mwananchi will be able to see actually how much they are cutting cost. As much as they are paying cost on this other side, they're actually greatly cutting cost on the other side. Thank you very much.
Interesting. If you hail from Kiambu and Nyandarua, do you have your representatives aptly represented your sentiments on the finance bill? You can tweet me at Obarrows. Your Twitter handle, Naomi?
At Naomi Ngatia.
At Naomi Ngatia. Wanjiku?
At Wanjiku Muturi.
At Wanjiku?
Muturi.
All right, we'll get the sentiments of Narok residents on the other side of this break. Thank you for staying with us on AM Live. And Mheshimiwa Sintei, I promised on the other side of this break would get the thoughts of Narok residents on the assent of the finance bill, which means it comes into effect Saturday. Are they excited, as Naomi tells us Nyandarua residents are?
Well, thank you, Olive. And my name is Honorable Sintei Nchoe, nominated MCA in Narok County. And I also happen to be a commissioner of the National Elections Board of ODM, and not just a commissioner, but also one of the youngest to actually be a commissioner at ODM. And mostly the only Maasai, because the only Maasai who was there was Pareno, who was like my mom. But well, on the finance bill, I come from Narok, a county which probably for the longest has not known development, and even in devolution, 10 years after devolution, we have seen little of what devolution could do. While most of the counties were able to see development and the fruits of devolution, but on the finance bill, wow, and maybe because I represent the young people in Narok, we are not happy, because what should we be happy about when the finance bill is about overtaxing people, and especially probably the employed, because we are being told that, and I will probably want to talk about maybe the housing fund and taxing of innovative young people, especially the creatives and small enterprises. And there's one saying that you cannot tax a country into prosperity. What we are saying today is a country where we are taxing everything we are seeing. We are talking about a situation where a government is asking people, because we cannot find jobs for you, we cannot create jobs for you, create jobs for yourself. And then you go out there and you create jobs for yourself. And in this context, it's actually about creatives. You get a job for yourself and the country is telling you, okay, fine, because you got a job for yourself, we're going to tax you so we can take care of you. And I don't know how that should work, because these people are already paying some tax. But then on top of that, you're asking them to pay more tax. And then you're also telling people that we're going to, creating a housing fund for you. It started as a housing levy. When you talk about a levy, and I can talk about that because sometime between 2016 and 2018, there was actually some sort of housing levy that was passed. And I remember during that time, it was actually voluntary, that because some people cannot maybe your salary is not to the context of on which you can actually take a mortgage that is able to get you the kind of house you want, then you contribute towards housing fund, but then it's not a tax. You're contributing voluntarily. But today you're telling us, and they started with 3%. When they started with 3%, they said it was mandatory for every single person to contribute towards the 3%. And then when Kenyans complained about the 3% and the fact that they actually didn't need housing because we have much more pressing needs, like health issues, like education. But the government is telling us the most important thing you need actually right now is housing. And Kenyans were in uproar, asking, why exactly are we supposed to contribute to housing fund when it's not the most mandatory need right now? And when we complained, then the government went back or not actually the government, let's say the Kenya Kwanza brigade went back, and I will speak like this because I am actually opposition, fortunately or unfortunately. But then the point here is they went back to 1.5. With 3%, there was a cap that if you earn this much, then your cap to contributing to the housing fund is this much. Then they went to 1.5%, which now does not have a cap. Which means if you're earning 500,000, you're actually contributing a certain percentage. You're earning 200,000 or 100,000, you're contributing a certain percentage. With 3%, there was a cap. With 1.5, maybe Kenyans are hoodwinked to think the tax has actually reduced. It has not. But also my point still is, why would we be contributing to a housing fund? And maybe because I come from Narok, I would be imagining of infrastructure in terms of roads because I come from a place that produces a lot of wheat. But our problem is we cannot be able to get our wheat to the market. But you're telling me that I should be contributing to a house that I already have. And also being nomads and pastoralists, because I'll speak from a personal perspective. I am a Maasai. We move our cows from time to time because you're looking for water and you're looking for grass. You're telling me that I must contributing to housing fund. Also the point here is, and I actually remember the president was in Narok a few weeks ago for Honorable Soipan's Thanksgiving. And he said, even Maasais deserve to live in story buildings and actually move from rural areas to urban areas. But my question to the government would be, if you're moving to rural areas, where exactly our factory is going to be? Where is industrialization going to take place? You're asking a farmer who farms 1,000 acres of wheat to move, to probably go to Narok town. When exactly is he supposed to be taking care of the farm? But that's one thing. Okay. But then again on creatives.
All right, I mean, I'll stop you there because I know that we could go on and on and on. But interesting because you talked about this, you mentioned 500,000. And so they will be paying 32.5% more on their income tax. MCAs, najua hamjafika hapo bado kidogo. There was a threat that MCAs would frustrate the passage of county budgets unless their issues are addressed. I'm curious at what stage the budgeting process is at the county level. I'll come to you, Naomi Mabwekwaje Nyandarua.
Thank you so much, Olive. Currently, we are having a conversation with our executive in Nyandarua County and on how we can better use the funds in the county and the budgetary process. We completed our CIDP, we passed it, and it's going to be launched on tomorrow, on Wednesday. And what we want to do is to make sure that we clear the pending bills. We also want to make sure that the farmers in Nyandarua County are able to access affordable fertilizer, that we are able to create more cooling facilities for our potatoes and provide ready markets. So this is why we are taking this process seriously and we are sitting down with the executive. So the conversation is still ongoing in Nyandarua County.
All right. So, I mean, it's business as usual for the Nyandarua County Assembly?
Yes, it's business as usual. We are actually, when I live here, I'm going back to the county assembly. We are having a session today, and we are still continuing with that conversation to see how we can properly manage the funds in our county.
All right. What's the situation in Kiambu?
The situation in Kiambu County, we have already had a discussion on our county budget, and actually we earlier last week even passed the appropriation budget so that we can proceed. We actually even had our second phase of the issuing of bursaries earlier in the week. So we had the first phase where we had an allocation of 100 million. Then we raised that ceiling, and we were able to put an extra 100 million, which has been dispersed currently for the second phase. So we are actually having our constituents apply and get issued with the forms so that we can get the checks in a week or two.
All right.
So it is progressive.
Okay, so I mean, positive things coming from Nyandarua Kiambu. Does that mean the issues of increase in salary and parks, these issues have been addressed? Naomi, before I hear from Sinte?
The issue on MCA's salary, it has been an ongoing discussion. We have seen MCAs have raised up that issue. And Olive, I'd like to just give you a brief point of information. MCAs play a very big role. They are the grassroots, they're the people at the grassroots, they're the people interacting with Kenyans on daily basis. MCAs are the therapists, they are the parents. So when you go to your home, when I go home in Nyandarua County, yes, people expect, it's very true, Olive. You know, people will come to you with personal problems. They want you to help them with their, you know, personal home issues. When there is a family member who is unwell, they want you to come in to provide support mentally, emotionally. They want you to even provide financial support. So you see, a lot, MCAs have a lot on their plate. And what we are requesting MCAs, what was being requested by MCAs is that there be an autonomy, not salary per se, but also an autonomy of the county assemblies, so that they're able to provide assistance, timely assistance to the Wanjiko at the grassroots level, so that they can be able to provide support, timely support, and so that they don't have to really struggle to get the ward fund. You know, the ward fund is actually an allocation where the governor says, I will provide for you the ward fund. So what happens to counties where the governor has refused to give you an allocation for the ward fund? What do the people in your ward do when they need bursaries? What do they do when they need ECDs built, you know, in that ward? So that is what the MCAs need to be looked at, because we are saying the Kenya Kwanza government is a bottom-up government, right? And that is a conversation that is ongoing. So that
my question would be, though, listening to you, you're saying what would happen if they want what ECDs built and such. But isn't that the purview of the county government?
It's a collaboration between the executive and the MCAs, because the MCAs know what the people at the grassroots level want. You know what...
but isn't that why you're involved in the budget making process?
Exactly.
To ensure that adequate funds are allocated.
Yes, that is why we are involved in the process. But at the same time, Olive, we also need an autonomy. Just like the MPs have the CDF fund, that the MCAs need an autonomy of their resources, certain resources, so that they can fasten the process of actually the development.
Okay, there are those who argue where CDF is concerned that that is the only development they see. But Mheshimiwa Sinte, first of all, where is Narok as far as the budget making process is concerned, and also the grievances? Have your grievances been addressed?
I want to start by saying that our grievances have not been addressed. And then I will go back to the fact that we had a meeting as MCAs and had resolutions. There were
Was this the KCC one?
Yes, that were presented to both the SRC and the parliaments and the Senate and the county governments, all the 7 of them. And when we presented the resolutions, we gave a 14-day period of time to have a response. And after the 14 days, we didn't get any response. And Olive, I may want you to, you know, start imagining from the process of where SRC actually did deductions of the MCA salaries. We all know that MCAs are the primary unit of devolution. And it's interesting that I had someone saying yesterday that county assemblies should be scrapped off. But also the most interesting part about that is when you're scrapping off the county assemblies, it's not the MCAs you're actually sending home, you're sending home even the governors. Because you can't send an MC home and leave the governor, because then who does the oversighting process? And because you're speaking about a lot of issues, we are talking about salaries as MCAs that were brought down from 300,000 to 86,000. You're speaking about an MCA who's on the ground. You're talking about awards. And I would want you to imagine how many people are present in a ward. and then you have one MCA who earns 86,000. And as she said, you wake up every morning to messages of fundraisers, medical bills, and all those sort of issues. Now, my daughter goes to a school where I pay actually 76,000 shillings. So you tell me from my salary, if I'm paying 76,000 shillings for my daughter, I have 10,000 shillings left. And in these 10,000, I'm supposed to cover for fundraisers in my village, for medical bills, and for any other issues that someone may want to come up with. So that is one of the things you're talking about, because then you cannot have me go to the county assembly every day to legislate. You've scrapped off my plenary allowance so that I'm actually going to sit at the plenary legislating for my constituents, but I'm actually not paid a cent.
But isn't that ideally your remit now? Now there you're in your remit. That is now your job proper. The fundraisers and ETC are not your job.
No, good.
But now plenary is your job.
No, that's my job proper.
Yes, now that is what you're getting paid to do.
Good. So that is what I'm getting paid to do. I am not paid to sit in the plenary, but an MP is being paid to sit at the plenary. A senator is also being paid. And I would want to know, because what we are asking is, what then is the difference between the National Assembly and the Senate and the County Assembly? Because it is a replication of the National Assembly to the county level.
I know the SRC had scrapped the sitting allowance.
Well, they did.
And then the MPs were up in arms. So I'm not sure whether they reinstated it or not.
Oh, they actually did. Probably in dubious ways, but they're actually getting paid. Okay?
Okay.
So you're telling me that the most important job I need to do as an MCA, I'm actually not getting paid for it. Now, if you want an MCA to go to the assembly to legislate, like, even as a human being, you literally need to, sometimes entice people to actually do what they're supposed to do. So what convinces me to go to the assembly as, an MCA, if I'm actually not getting paid to actually sit and legislate? Then the second thing.
Well, I think that's where we have a difference of opinion, because that is now your job proper. So that is what you're getting paid to do, that 86,000.
But there is an allowance, a sitting allowance at the plenary, which was scrapped off. Now what we are asking is, what was the criteria of scrapping that off? That's the first thing. And then we're coming to the second thing. How did the SRC, arrive at paying MCs 86,000 shillings, while an MP is being paid 710,000 shillings? What was the criteria used? Because for an MP, it's actually like 43% of the president's salary. What we are asking as MCAs is, let us get a criteria for what you're paying us, and let us get a sitting allowance for the plenary. Second thing, and they've also spoken about, is the ward fund. Fortunately for me, I come from a county that when we actually got sworn in, we have 30 wards in Narok County. My governor is Olen Tutu, is UDA. But we also happen to, collect local revenue from Masai Mara, sometimes getting to 6 billion per year or 5 billion, depending, of course. And the one thing he did the first time he got into office is provide a fund. We couldn't call it ward fund because then it wasn't constitutional. This is what we are actually asking for now. But we called it a development fund. And in Narok County, every ward was given 100 million for development. And when I actually hear from my colleagues that they've never received bursary, as a nominated MCA, I received 1.5 million for bursary, and elected MCAs of Narok received 9 million for bursary. And I think for us, maybe it was because we got, another avenue for resources and funds other than just the exchequer. Because if we were waiting for the exchequer, then, we would all be in the same place. So for Narok County, it wouldn't be so much a burden to ask about the ward fund, but we are asking for all MCAs, because if we can actually get it from local revenue, why shouldn't all other MCAs get it? And why shouldn't all governors actually make sure that that fund is available? So on the ward fund and on bursary, I would want to say that the Narok MCAs are probably okay, and we are only going to raise it, especially for nominated MCAs, because we want it to get to 3 million. So we're going to talk to our governor, but for that, we're okay. But on salaries, you're still fighting. And No, I'm actually shocked that, you know, my colleagues are going on with business as usual, because as at now, we have 28 counties adjourned. No business going on until our grievances are actually met. And if you allow me, because I may have taken maybe a bit of time, if you may allow me, the other day, the deputy president said, sisi kama MCs tunaweza weka sufuria na masahani kwa vichwa, lakini hakuna pesa.
Where did he say that?
No, I'll remember where that was, but it is actually a very, it was in a video actually, and it was making a speech. Kama MCs tukitaka kuweka sufuria kwa vichwa na masahani, we can actually do that kwa sababu hakuna pesa. If we want to go work in his office, we can, but hakuna pesa. But the most interesting issue here is, while they raised the salaries for the president and the deputy president, we are getting every day, I mean, we actually have spousal offices in this country. But when it comes to grievances of people who actually legislate for you and are working for the people and making sure that development gets down there, then there is no money.
All right. So let me quickly highlight what the grievances are, right? And what the resolutions that were passed are. And this document was kindly shared with me by Robert Alai, the Member of County Assembly for Kileleshwa. So the MCA is resolved that there be established a ward development fund being fully anchored in law at 20% of the county development budget. That there be established a county affirmative action fund for nominated members of county assemblies, that county assemblies be granted financial autonomy, which Naomi has repeatedly made reference to aid in effective execution of their legal mandate as encapsulated in the existing applicable laws defining their mandate, that remuneration and benefits of members of county assemblies be reviewed considering the percentages in place at the national parliament in full realization of the spirit of equity, that the SRC be and is hereby compelled to reinstate the plenary allowances being the best practice at the national level and all legislative assemblies in the world, which has been made reference to by Mheshimiwa Sentei, that Kenya Revenue Authority be compelled to revoke, revert and refund the 30% tax levied on members' car reimbursement, noting the fund is an automatic privilege and or facilitative fund for the honorable members upon assuming office and not a benefit as it has been misconstrued by the authority as demonstrated in their advisory to Clark County Assembly, Tana River County, reference that unless the above resolutions are considered within the next 14 days of their adoption, it is hereby, and this is in bold caps and underlined, further resolve that all the 47 county assemblies shall adjourn indefinitely. So you're saying 28 are adjourned at the moment.
As of today.
All right. And that this assembly resolves to boycott the legislative assembly slated. Okay, so other details there. But effectively, these are the resolutions. And we've gotten a status update on where things currently stand. Let me move us along to the question of the state of our democracy. Today, kuna kamkunji ya Azimio to give a way forward for those who are not as excited as Nyandarua residents about the finance bill being assented to by the president coming into effect come Saturday. Naomi, what in your view, of late we've seen the cabinet secretary for trade, Moses Kuria, Twitter Malaya, Twitter as the press, as actually not as the press in totality, but the Nation Media Group. We've also had Azimio say their members have been bought and and incorporated into the Kenya Kwanza faction. In your view, what is the state of democracy in Kenya?
I believe the president has given Kenyans and the media democracy. I believe that the media has been given a platform to execute their roles and do their job. Unfortunately, we have seen instances where the media has resulted to giving biased information, fake opinion polls, and actually being to an extent of being biased, even when reporting or even giving interviews. You see, when you talk about individuals who are calling out the media. I believe if the media is being biased, they should be called out. But
so
when they're doing a good job,
evidence of a robust democracy.
When they're doing, you see, Olive, when the media is doing a good job, then they should be called out and they should be told they're doing a good job. But the media should also ensure that they give facts. The media is not supposed to be giving opinions. The media should not be taking sides. The media should not be at the forefront of giving political opinions or telling the public what they're supposed to be doing.
You know, we're also shareholders. So it's very difficult when you see things going wrong to sit back. Is that what you're saying? Mind our business?
No, what I'm saying is that the media should give facts. You see, I will take you back a little bit. And previously, a while back, in a previous government, we saw that when the media was giving news, there was only one news station. Some time back, we only had one news broadcasting station. We only had limited news that only positive, only certain messages could be aired on TV. But right now, we have anybody can actually start their own TV station. Anybody can go on social media and create their own network and actually share information. And we even saw that the president, just the other day, he was in France. He went on interviews and he was ready to talk on the media. So I believe that the media has been given democracy in Kenya. The media has been given a platform to give facts and give information. But there's also a lot of positive things that are ongoing. The government has made a lot of achievements so far. How comes that we're not seeing all this aired on media? How comes that we're not seeing the positive side of the government? How growth has changed? How things have improved in certain sectors? We saw border riders are benefiting. Why are we not seeing that? You know,
we are. We look at the Daily Nation front page here. Good news for borders in free insurance training plan.
That's amazing. And also we had seen that Nation Media had written down a whole script on what the government has not done, which is also amazing. But the media, what I'm trying to say, Olive, the media should just give facts.
So you're saying we have no reason to fear for our democracy?
No, you have no reason. During the election period, we actually saw that there are certain media stations that stopped airing the results. When IBC was tallying, some results were not adding up, especially on media stations. They were a bit different. At some point, it even stopped. When
it was a bit more complicated than that. But let me also hear from Wanjiku. You know, this threat to cut off advertising because they don't like how Nation Media Group is covering them. Is that not a threat, in your view, to democracy?
Personally, I actually would not take it as a threat because what is happening that in the space of democracy, it's like a double-edged sword, cuts both ways. That is what democracy is. And you find the media on this side is saying fall about government, and on this other side, if it is called out, if the media is called out on misinformation, they're on the other side crying that we're being attacked, we're told not to advertise. We look
which misinformation?
Personally, I saw the media really dwell on issues maybe on housing levy and on the finance bill. That is, they actually ended up dwelling so much on the things that actually are not the only things on the finance bill, and actually they left out a lot of good things about it.
But how is it?
That doesn't qualify as misinformation.
Exactly.
There was misinformation on the time the media say that on the finance bill we are going to have on the insurance compensation. They said that when someone goes to claim from their insurance cover, that actually, for example, for instance, if I had an accident and I go to claim from my insurance and I get paid, the media said actually the government is taxing that compensation.
Yes,
is it a lie? No, it's actually the truth.
And also, I have seen what you've said about the threat on advertising on government. We can see, for example, for the
I'll defer to Julian Zamboko on that one for insurance. I'll call him and ask him whether that is still contained. Well, I mean, as at the point it was passed, whether that is still the position. But yes, you're saying on what? Advertising? On
advertising, we can see, for example, for Daily Nation, the government is the biggest consumer on the paper, the Daily Nation. We see probably they have a production of around 80,000 copies a day, and around 64,000 of those copies are actually consumed by the government, and others, the rest are distributed to stores and other marketers who do the job. And we can see if we have seen the media actually protect their stakeholders, the people who advertise with them all the time. If Safaricom advertises with you guys and other stakeholders, you guys protect them. But every single day, there is no way the government can keep on advertising with you guys. And out of the 64,000 copies that we consume as government every single day, the headline is something just negative about the government. So even if our money, even if it were me as an individual, let alone government, I would actually want to get value for my money because I am a client at the end of the day.
Wow. Who said amazing? Yeah, you said amazing. Let me say wow. Mheshimiwa Sinte, what in your view is the state of our democracy? The finance bill brought to the fore the issue of swallowship, swallowing members of the opposition, de facto opposition. Wakikula, you know, swallowship can have that, if you talked of a double-edged sword, it can have a double meaning. And also now on this issue, this onslaught on the media.
Well, I'd actually start by thinking about the definition of democracy, which in simple terms is that the power rests with the people. And when the power rests with the people, then because we are a constitutional democracy, it means we're electing people to offices to represent our wishes, which more often in Kenya doesn't happen like that, because then you elect people to represent you and they come back and they ask you, do you want us to pass a finance bill? And you're like, no. Then they go to Parliament and the Senate and they pass it. So sometimes you're left wondering, who exactly are they representing? So for me, it actually feels like, yes, it is actually an onslaught on democracy, because when you start by buying off the opposition, the moment you win, whether it's a win, which now, because we have a president in office, which even as an opposition member, I also accept that Honorable William Ruto is the president of the country. But the very first thing he does when he gets into office is do what? Buy the MPs and senators.
Allegedly. Allegedly.
Well,
we are told they are working
fine.
with the president.
Let's say, sorry, Olive, let's say allegedly, but buys off. And the reason I wouldn't, and because I've also gone to law school, so I know what, I know what allegedly means and what facts mean. And when you have members of the opposition or the parties which formed the coalition of the opposition bought off to go, allegedly bought off to go to the side of the government, you're killing democracy, because democracy requires that then everyone has a voice, that there is a government in place, but the people who dissent or have alternative views from the government also get their say. So I think that is actually the point we started from when you're talking about the onslaught on democracy in this country now. And then we come to the media. The reason myself and my colleagues are seated here is because the media is actually supposed to have its place. Because if it didn't, then we wouldn't be seated here. And especially maybe as someone who doesn't support the ills of the government, when the government does good, I will say that it has done well. When it hasn't, I still have my voice to say that it hasn't, because I have the freedom to say so. But if you're speaking about a whole CS going to social media with thousands of followers, or actually millions of followers, who are able to see his messages and actually call a media station malaya. There are ways, especially on Twitter, that you can actually choreograph your words so that they're not they do not, appear to be insulting. But that was so upfront. And for me, one, if you're a representative of the government, which the CS in question here, who's Honorable Moses Kuria, CS for Trade, who represents this country, both in the country and outside the country, if you're looking at the character and integrity of someone who should be representing us in government, then Moses Kuria is not. But also, one, the problem in this country now is anyone who opposes the government is seen as Azimio. Olive Barrow, if today you say that the government said yesterday, we're going to give you houses on Friday, and then on Friday they don't, and then you call them out on Friday, you suddenly become Azimio. We cannot be seeing Raila Odinga everywhere, because then for me it tells me we have a government of people who won, in quotes, won elections, they got into governance, and they have no idea what they're supposed to do as a country. So then we're still going back to blame games, and we're saying that, you know, Raila Odinga is only sending his people. It can't be that I'm here, Sinte, and my colleagues are here, but for example, if she says that, you know, MCAs are agitated, that's a fact, isn't it? And then someone from Kenya Kwanza would say, because she said MCAs are not comfortable, then she's against the government. She's not against the government. She's speaking her truth. As a government, we cannot see Raila Odinga everywhere and Azimio everywhere. As a people and as a country that is ruled by a constitution, we must remember that democracy dictates that a government can rule, but it can also be criticized. And an opposition is allowed unless we are going back to a one de facto political party, which to me looks like where we are heading.
All right, and we need, and I'll come back to you to get your response to that one. Wanjiku was just trying to pull up some tweets here. And then when we come back from break, the question that arises for me then, Naomi and Wanjiku, on the issue of this tyranny of numbers, because I'm looking at the headlines on the dailies today, Daily Nation, senators vote to save CIO Odwol, and it says Kenya Kwanza legislators gang up to deal Azimio rivals a blow. Looking at the Standard and Ruto, Raila battles rescue Odwol from Axe, and so on and so forth. This quote tyranny of numbers in the House. You know, is it just that William Ruto's administration played smart, or is it a deliberate effort to undermine democracy by, what is the word, building alliance with some members of the opposition? We take a look at that on the other side of this break. All right, welcome back to AM Live. And the question we were looking at just before we took the break, Naomi and Wanjiku. Wanjiku, you had wanted to give a rejoinder, but even as you do that, answer me this, right? Is it evidence of a robust democracy that these legislators are exercising their democracy to align with the side they feel best represents the interests either of themselves or those of their constituents? Or is it actually a deliberate attempt by the William Ruto administration to undermine democracy, in your view?
Olive, I feel it's time we decided to embrace a diverse competitiveness in terms of government views and government agenda views, because we see, for example, the way my counterpart here from Narok is saying that allegedly the president has bought off some of the Azimio members of parliament into supporting his view. But I feel if actually, to be honest, if those people believed in the cause of what is being rallied by the Azimio side, the Azimio side had one chance to actually rally their own members, and not only rally their own members towards opposing the finance bill, but actually take a leap of faith to convince our Kenya Kwanza members to actually support their cause, because they felt the finance bill had probably in their own view issues that actually suppress the common mwananchi. But when the actual day, because as much as we make the noise out here, there is the government bureaucracy where things happen at the house, on the floor, and we saw quite a good number, and actually of the strong Azimio supporters don't even show up. So in my view, I feel like they supported the finance bill in one way or another, because not showing up, not saying anything, silence is as good as a nod or a yes. And we have seen some of the Azimio supporters actually went to the floor and supported the finance bill. We have seen the Nairobi woman rep come on board and say, I support the finance bill. And I feel it is quite unfortunate that if someone is probably 8 months ago they supported, or they got to their elective position through the Azimio side, and they have come to see actually the finance bill supports their own residents, the people they represent, and they want to support government agenda, they are victimized as if they are being bought. But I feel it is time we embrace people to actually agree, and it is okay for you to feel whatever you feel, because today you're on this side, tomorrow you're on the other. We have seen county governments, even some of them that are led by Azimio governors, actually support the housing. 42 or 44 county governments have already signed an MOU with the Department of Housing. They have already allocated the land where the governments can be able to start constructing, and some of them have even been done groundbreaking by the president, where we can have that, and some of them are even Azimios. So I feel if someone feels the people they represent are actually being represented in the finance bill, it is okay. It is okay to have your own stand and not to be victimized with a political affiliation.
All right. What's your response to that, Mheshimiwa Sente, that she's saying this is evidence now of democracy?
Oh, well, maybe our definitions of democracy are different. And, well, being that people's thought processes are different. But then I would also like to mention, and in response to what she has said, especially on the fact that there was, you know, like a very conspicuous absenteeism during the passing of the finance bill or the debating of the finance bill. And when I'm talking about allegedly buying off or convincing the opposition not to actually be in the house so that they actually do not present their views.
But, you know, is there evidence of that?
No, I'm actually coming to that, Olive. Sorry, because I mentioned that first. But then I was also going to say the fact that as a representative of the people and as a member, for example, of Azimio, there are principles that I should stand by. And also means that no one can convince me not to go to the assembly, especially maybe right now. For example, if there was any matter in the assembly today in Narok, no one is going to convince me not to go to the assembly to give my views or actually give my position. Because I think then the best point of democracy is giving your position on record.
Yes.
That you do not support something, not be absent. But also on that matter, I would also like to clarify, and you may have heard this from the Secretary General of ODM, that our members who did not present themselves on the day of voting for the bill were actually called for disciplinary action. But on that point, I cannot, I mean, I may want to blame the government all the time, but on that I cannot blame them, because then the government does not hold a gun to your head that please don't go to the parliament to pass that bill or not to. It only tells you that the only currency politicians, most politicians, and we are politicians sitting here, the only currency they actually trust and adhere to is bribes and money. Because, I mean, I would give a lot of stories, but because I cannot,
As a legal practitioner.
As a legal practitioner, I cannot be able to ascertain them, then I cannot be able to, I mean, talk about that instance. But also, when we come to probably maybe the matter of the Deputy Governor of Siaya, for example, someone texted me yesterday and told me that, Mheshimiwa, you are Commissioner of NEB. And I said, yes, I was. How did you guys come about in picking Oduol as the running mate for Orengo? I told him that there are so many processes within the elections board in which when you're picking a governor candidate, which they should apply, usually they are actually allowed to pick their own deputy or running mates. And then the running mate is only supposed to present their qualifications to you. If they meet the criteria, then you have no business with them. But also the issue here is, then if maybe, I mean, Oduol was in the Senate and they voted and they voted not to impeach him. But as much as they voted not to impeach him, I was following the process, he was found, guilty of almost all charges that were preferred to the Senate.
I saw 2. The report
because there were 3.
The committee talked, okay.
So when I say almost, it's like there were 3 and then 2. But the Senate said, we will not be used as a rubber stamp for county politics. So that when you disagree with your MCAs or your deputy governors, then you come to us and we're supposed to actually rubber stamp that for you because maybe you're a friend or we sit with you. Which I find that something very proper, because as much as we might imagine that sometimes the senators and the MPs are bought off maybe, or they are bribed and stuff like that, when they decide that they're just going to do their oversight role over the counties, if the matters preferred to them do not meet the threshold and criteria to be able to impeach someone, then they've shown that that they can actually be trusted. But also, it would still go back to the matter of Azimio and Kenya Kwanza government, because as you say, most Kenya Kwanza senators voted not to impeach Oduol. And if I'm being political, and in this instance, I'm not trying to be factual or even someone who understands the law, I'm just being political. We are looking at a situation where you're doing something to punish the opposition, because maybe, as opposition people, they were, looking forward to having Oduol impeached, maybe because, Orengo is their working constitution and, their legislature and stuff like that. But then Oduol is not impeached. And then Kenya Kwanza tells you that we just did that, to show you guys that we are actually in power. Which then for me spells the fact that you're not doing your legislative work or the work you're actually supposed to do. You're doing something to please your prefect, who in this instance is the president.
All right. And my follow-up to that, and I will come to you, Naomi, but looking at it through Wanjiko's prism, right? Isn't this evidence of democracy? Because perhaps those who skipped the vote were between a rock and a hard place. Yes. Because they can't vote their conscience, because they risk the wrath of their party leader.
Olive, if you allow me.
Perhaps, sorry. Wait, yeah. And then the fact that now we are seeing opposition MPs defying certain personalities that have in the past been viewed as godlike, isn't that evidence then of democracy taking root?
Yes.
I wanted Meshaya Sitting to respond to that.
Thank you, because I wanted to respond to that. But also, when you want to mention names, don't say godlike. Please just say Raila Odinga. Because I am one of the people that have been told, when you're Azimio, you're actually told it's a cult.
It's a cult. It's
yes.
indeed a cult.
They're always telling you,
but it's true. Is it not? It's true.
Is KK not a cult?
No, it's not a cult.
Every single political party or every single political journey you take, and you're following someone without understanding the concept of politics, it's a cult. How is a cult defined? But the point here is, if you wanted to say Raila Odinga, but I will forgive you because you have a job to protect.
No, she's about to go for the
I know. You have
she's about to join.
Just say Raila Odinga. But, one, usually in the parliament or the Senate or the county assembly, you're allowed to either say yes, no, or abstain.
Yes.
Which for me, I simply do not see any reason as to why anyone would not go to parliament because they were in a hard place not to decide. But maybe I would understand because, like Kenyans were looking at this thing because, this was the most important thing right now, especially towards the end of the financial year. And this has to do with their monies and their taxes, so they were looking at their representatives. And so, for example, if I was an MP, then my constituents would be looking at me and saying, what is Sente going to say? And then you actually don't appear. In fact, it is actually worse for you not to appear than you appearing and saying yes or no.
Absolutely.
I expected my MPs would say no. For example, I come from Narok North. my MP, who is also the very, very first female MP in Narok County, Honorable Mantaini. She's Azimio, but she voted yes. And then immediately she voted yes. That weekend, we attended the same, a wedding together. And you know, she woke up and said, yes, I voted yes. And she gave her reasons for voting yes. And she was telling her people, it was actually, you know, where you totally come from, where your votes come from. You know, she was saying, I voted yes because of this and this. For me, that spells honor and respect to your constituents, unlike refusing to show up.
True.
Because what does that tell you? You're a coward. You do not even know what you want, whether it's yes or no. I mean, I'd rather have someone representing me to vote yes on something I don't want than not appearing, you know. But also the point here is whether all our MPs are going to vote no. This thing was still going to pass because, and I will still refer to something the president said. And on that, I'm very factual because I can provide evidence. At Honorable Soipan's home for her Thanksgiving, you know, Kenyans were saying on Twitter that we want to see how our MPs vote. And you know what the president said? You see the way Kenyans are saying we want to see, you know, the way their MPs are voted. We also want to see, I want to see who is going to vote yes or who is going to actually vote no, especially in Kenya Kwanza. And immediately after that, and I remember Honorable Wamushomba voted no, and she's Kenya Kwanza. And there's a speech, and you know, that is factual. Someone saying that she will be reprimanded for voting no. But then, I would not blame Kenya Kwanza because, like I told you, we also send someone letters to our MPs who did not appear or who voted against the party position. So that, actually that is a democratic process of every political party. But yes,
all right,
that is my response to that.
Okay, and Naomi, I want you to come in and hear from you. What advice you would have then for those who are aggrieved by the passage of the finance bill? There are those who believe it was, you know, like the 8% VAT on fuel. It was bulldozed. That's the word. Bulldozed through. And so they believe that the voice of the Kenyan person was not taken into account fully. What recourse then do they have? And that leads us up to the Kamkunji, because that decides the way forward for Azimio. But before then, let's just take a look at those members and the vote on the finance bill as far as ODM is concerned. Statement on the status of show cause letters issued to members who defied party position on the finance bill. On Thursday, 15th June 2022, the Office of the National Chairperson issued show cause letters to a number of members of the National Assembly regarding their conduct during the second reading and voting on the finance bill. The following members have replied to the show cause letters, and they've been listed here. That is John Badi, Ivo Bara, Bensouda, Elisha Odhiambo, Ado Mohammed, Esther Passaris, Karoli Omondi, Babu Owino, George Aladwa, and Irene Mayaka. The list goes on. The following members have not replied to the show cause letters: Gideon Ochanda, Joseph Oyula Otiende, Amolo, John Ariko, Namoit, Paul Nabuin, and the list goes including Mark Nyamita, etc., Fatma Masito. The responses so far received are being processed in accordance with Rule 11 of the ODM Disciplinary Committee Practice and Procedure Rules, and the affected members will be informed of the verdict in due course. We also take this opportunity to apologize to Tom Joseph Kajwang, TJ Kajwang, whose name was erroneously included in our statement from the 15th. Let me see if I can pull up the statement from the 15th. And those who were absent during voting were actually John Badi, Said Buya, Hirbai, Mohammed Abdikadir Hussein. A total of, Irene Mayaka, I can see at the bottom here, a total of 24 on this first page. Let's take a look at the second page. Yep, 24, this letter from Edwin Sifuna. They were invited to show cause why disciplinary action should not be taken against them. Let me see. This list at the top here are those who voted for the bill: Esther Passaris, Aiden Ado Mohammed, Elisha Ocheng Odhiambo, Karoli Omondi. All right, there is that statement. Naomi, I had a question for you, and that is, what recourse to those who feel they're being cheated or have been cheated by the passage of this finance bill have, in your view?
Olive, when the elections were being held in 2022, Kenya Kwanza government, when they were campaigning, they talked about the plan. We had the plan, and in it, we talked about Kenya growing our economy and not relying on debt from other countries and not relying on other countries for relief food. We want to grow our country. We want to, make the conditions in our country for manufacturing, for, employment, creating employment opportunities. So when we talk about the finance law, it is essential that this law is put in place so that we can also grow our economy. And I believe Kenyans will see the fruits of the finance law.
All right, but those who are aggrieved, what's your advice to them? Azimio is weighing up different options. There was talk of going to court, but then again, they haven't expressed the greatest confidence in the independence of the judiciary following the Supreme Court verdict on their election loss. And then there is also the option on the table of kurudi maandamano. What's your advice to those who feel this is not this was not how I wanted things to go, or this is how things should not have gone?
You see, Olive,
should have gone, not how. Okay, you get my point.
Yes, you see, Olive, the finance law was brought to Parliament. The MPs had a choice. They had a period of time and they had a decision to make. So the decision that some of them refused to show up and participate means that they didn't care. They didn't care about the law. But you see, those who showed up cared about it and they passed it. So what I would advise them, Kenya is a democratic country. They have been given space. They can go and picket, but they had an opportunity. They were given an opportunity to bring out through public participation. They were given an opportunity in Parliament. They were given a whole period of time. And right now, they want to go back to the streets to picket. Just a word of advice, when they're going back to the streets, they can do picketing, but they're not allowed to damage people's property. And it is unfortunate. It is unfortunate that sometimes we have seen recently that when they decide to go on Mandamano, the main objective isn't to fight for the interest of Kenyans. They're going there for their own personal matters. They want to just cause chaos and havoc because they have some personal issues that they want to push.
What personal issues?
Yeah, please.
No, we have seen. You see, Olive, when I will take you back for a minute. When they started, the first time they went on the streets, they were talking about opening the servers. Mm-hmm. They talked about opening the servers until that they could no longer sell that story. So they came up with IEBC commissioners. They tried to push the story on IEBC commissioners, and they were told there is no handshake. They decided that story is not going anywhere, and they decided to push another narrative.
I'm not sure that's an accurate depiction of the situation, because there was there was a raft of issues that they had. So it's not that it was one after the other. It was. But
you see, Olive, they are not consistent.
If you may allow me.
They are not consistent.
All right. Mheshimiwa Sente?
Thanks, Olive. And I think the issue we were talking about was, or what we could advise the people who are actually aggrieved by the passing of the finance bill, because it has already passed. But before I get there, I would, want to start from the last point my colleague made on the fact that when Azimio goes for protest or picketing, it is on personal issues. And as long as you cannot factually state exactly whose personal interest is going on the street, then you're wrong. But I would also like to mention one thing. The last time Azimio were picketing, in fact, before anyone was on the street, we had policemen across Nairobi, because the point here was trying to prevent Raila Odinga and his followers from getting to CBD, which they never did because maybe that was actually not the interest. But the issue here is, I actually remember, and I was part of all those processes, that it was actually the police who were causing chaos more than the Wananchi who were picketing, because when Azimio says they are going to the streets, at 7 a.m., you cannot have policemen in Kibra or have policemen in, Mombasa Road before even anyone decides to go to this Amjamka. You've not actually gone to the streets. But the police are there, and the issue here is because Kenyans are allowed to picket. It's in the Constitution. And actually, the role of the police is to provide security for the people picketing. So that if they decided that because Azimio is going to the streets, they were going to provide security, who was going to touch anyone's business? Because they can't actually remember. Okay, usually you may find a few wayward people, which you will in any given circumstance, who may decide that, okay, fine, we are passing Kimathi Street, but then they decide to branch off to Moi Avenue, stuff like that. But it's usually maybe one or two people. And I actually remember the last protest, and those guys were chasing Raila Odinga around Thika Road, and the only person who was in those vehicles was Nuru Okanga, and Gaucho. Raila Odinga was not there. But when they were going through Mombasa Road, I mean, the kind of chaos that was created by police to not even allow these people to protest, while it is actually their constitutional right to do so, begs the question, does the government intend to allow democratic processes constitutionally, are given to them, or they're actually going to decide what they're going to do? Because I remember we were being told by Kenya Kwanza people, we are actually going to show you, tutaonyesha ile proper. But allow people to do what they want. Because sometimes when you actually allow them to do what they want, it becomes easier for you as a government, because they will do what they want. Maybe they get to the end, or they present their grievances, whether they are met or not, they will be satisfied. But the point to prevent that from happening, then you are already creating a chaotic process for them. But then on the, maybe the question which was on aggrieved Kenyans, you've realized that one of the aggrieved, methods that Kenyans are taking, and one of those Kenyans is going to Kamukunji, because we're allowed to do so, to go discuss, our, not disgust really, but I would say our unsatisfactory, feelings on the finance bill. And that is allowed by the Constitution, because we can gather anywhere. But I would also like to, maybe for those who cannot be able to attend Kamukunji, because not anyone will go. And also the issue here is, not all aggrieved Kenyans actually belong to Azimio. In fact, where I come from in Narok, the loudest people are actually people who voted for the Kenya Kwanza government. And, when my friend said that they had a plan, my problem is, in that plan, there was no, plan to actually increase taxes. There was no plan. And actually, as of yesterday, maybe, the president thought that the finance bill was debated and it went through and I ascended to it. Let's increase in NHIF. As a person, I've been paying NHIF, and the last person I took a patient to hospital, there was no money from NHIF. I could not find a bed in a ward for my patient, but it's being increased as of yesterday. Like, it's a discussion. No. And because, no, that's actually the truth. It was a discussion. It's still a discussion, and it is actually the president who brought it up, the NHIF issue. As of yesterday, Central Bank is increasing the loan base rates, which means if I'm taking a loan today, I probably may not be paying the same interest I paid a few months ago, it's increasing. The point here is, you're taxing Kenyans who no longer have anything in their pockets. I don't know if it is actually about creating local revenue and we don't have to borrow, again, like we did in the past. Okay. First of all, there's no country that survives without debt. The point of debt is to manage it in a way that you're actually able to repay your debts in time, honor your timelines.
All right.
Okay?
Okay. And we'll have to cut you short because I want Wanjiku to respond to that. Wanjiku, looking at the headline, Taifa Leo, hii imeenda. Is Azimio, are they the ones who are undermining democracy by refusing to move on despite the democratic processes having come to their conclusion? Because they had the opportunity, as Mheshimiwa has clearly stated here, to vote in Parliament. They did not participate. And then now to come back and punish us. Some have argued, myself, for their failure to fully exploit the democratic processes.
I will start by actually being very surprised that my counterpart here is saying how they uphold democracy by the same clause as a coalition, majorly as ODM party. They actually sent reprimanding letters, for disciplinary letters to their members who did not show up to the House, or actually some of the ones also who supported the finance bill. But coming to our side, we had a very interesting situation where the Member of Parliament for Githunguri voted against the finance bill, and there is none of us on record, or rather the party itself, as the which is led by the Secretary.
Interjection, and I'm sorry that I'm going to interject. Sorry, there was actually a statement that she was going to be punished, but remember, before you misquote me, I said the same way that the people in Kenya Kwanza had a problem with her voting no was the same issue we had as Azimio for those who voted yes.
Right. So I'm being told
what I'm saying is having a sentiment and actually writing a letter is a different thing. In our Kenya Kwanza government, one of the ways that actually shows that we are democratic is actually letting her have her opinion, and it is fine. Because if that's what you feel, that's
my question to you though was, is Azimio being undemocratic?
Yes. They are being undemocratic, because one of the ways they gave during the out of the grievances they had given was actually having partisan talks. But immediately, I remember, we actually had our team out as Kenya Kwanza. They actually didn't like our team from the first, before even they had a sitting. They actually felt as if we sent the wrong people. And it's our choice to send whoever we think and we want, and whoever we think that will actually represent the thoughts of the coalition or also the party.
All right,
so I don't know why it is our duty to send you a team and you actually have a problem with the team.
All right, so I have to conclude the conversation at this point, ladies. I didn't get that clarification from Julian Zamboko, but I will. I want to thank Mheshimiwa Sentei Nchoi, MCA Narok, Naomi Ngatia, MCA Nyandarua, Wanjiku Muturi, MCA Kiambu. Mmenichangamsha sana yes, boy. My name is Olive Burrows. Winnie Lubembe coming up next with Your World.